The Pondoff's Anonymous podcast network is sponsored by McKelvey Insurance Group. If you've ever felt confused or overwhelmed by insurance, McKelvey Insurance Group keeps it simple. They're an independent agency, which means they compare options from multiple providers to find coverage that actually fits you, not just one provider's policy. There's no pressure and no jargon, just honest guidance and real help. Call Evan McKelvey at 618-623-0080 or reach out to us at Pondoff's Anonymous and we'd be happy to connect the dots. They will save you money and they'll save it for you in less than 24 hours. Call Evan. This episode of Needed to Hear That is brought to you by Light Source. What do we need when we're in the dark? Sometimes it's simply just a light source. Good evening.
Hey, good evening. We're braving the weather
We are.
for this.
You have a beautiful new car.
Yeah. As a result of a less than beautiful situation, we were fortunate enough to get a beautiful new car. Yeah.
Praying it doesn't hail.
Yeah, and the avoiding the hail would be nice. That's one of those things where I think people, when you say praying for something, people will say to me like, well, and like to pray to the Buddha or whatever you pray to.
Jesus.
And it's like, all right, I got it. Don't worry. We have our own way of doing things, I guess.
Are we praying to Buddha and Jesus that we don't have hail?
Yeah, it seems like a selfish prayer.
Well, if we pray that there's not a destructive tornado hailstorm at Illinois Recovery Center in Swansea, endangering the lives of many.
Right. It's
a less selfish prayer.
Yeah, it's becoming magnanimous by the moment.
That's a big word.
Nice.
On the last podcast, Zoe said, use the phrase cognitive dissonance.
Sure.
And I feel like that's a social worker term.
We learn it early.
I told Ashley once, don't use that phrase around me.
Ashley probably experiences a lot of dissonance.
I would imagine.
Yeah.
I don't know what it means, but I'm sure that's so our relationship is successful.
Yeah, or sure. Or, maybe more ambivalence, like feels a lot of things all at once, feels a lot of different ways about something. These are all human things. Everybody feels it. It wouldn't be just being married to you that does it.
I've gotten some feedback on our podcast.
Yeah.
Rough feedback pointed at me.
Yeah.
That I'm looking at my phone sometimes.
Oh.
And I want to clarify with our audience.
The audience that watches, of course. Most people listen.
Right. The audience that watches, if they happen to also be critical, I am monitoring a time. So I know kind of ballpark where we're at as far as like the stopwatch.
Sure.
And not that there is an end time, but if we're at 30 minutes, I'm going to stretch it out. We need a little more than that. Sure. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And usually, in fact, every time I've time checked us, because if you're on a roll with something, it's like, oh, fuck, we've been into this for, it's not like, oh, God, we're only at 30 minutes. We got 45 minutes more to go. We like to keep it around an hour and 15. I think it's probably a sweet spot. When we've gone shorter, maybe definitely longer. But there isn't we don't have a rule.
No.
And, not your favorite show, but a couple PAFOs have gone 3.5 hours. That's pack a lunch.
3.5 hours. You could sentence me to that.
That's a couple potty breaks for those of us with smaller bladders in the middle.
Wow.
I don't
so
think
much important things to be said.
That's
probably what it is.
You're right.
All those personalities.
It is our, this isn't what we're going to talk about tonight, but
I'm aware.
Our previous guest for PA talked about, he works in this field and talked about compassion fatigue.
Mm-hmm.
You probably
talk about it a lot.
You could probably, I would imagine we'll do an episode on compassion fatigue.
We could.
I feel like PAFO is my counter to my own compassion fatigue.
Okay.
Like the duo dogs we've talked about.
Sure.
Less serious, if you will, than Needed to Hear That.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you don't want anybody to yuck anybody's yums, right?
Sure.
If somebody enjoys something, they enjoy something, and
Right.
there's no reason to shame it. So I'm glad that you have an outlet.
Thank you.
Um, and I mean, I'm glad that you speak to the idea of compassion fatigue. You are on a lot more than people probably realize in terms of
Mm.
compassion and patience, right? Like all jokes aside of you as the more shit talky
Mm-hmm.
of the crew, or somebody that is more boisterous or outgoing. um but at this point, you have multiple podcasts. At least two of them are focused on the ability to stay a little bit in the lane of some really difficult, serious
Sure.
topics. You have Underground, which of course Underground then includes sharing a story. Many of the stories brutal.
Mm-hmm.
And the Room, I think, is in no uncertain terms, right? The Room is kind of expecting that you're going to create the container so that a really, really brutal story doesn't get out of hand.
Sure.
It doesn't get kind of overwhelming. You're kind of reading that room so the other person can tell their story and feel safe in that container, which is not easy to do. So I mean, you should be speaking a little bit to your own compassion fatigue, because you're having a lot of these conversations. You're having a lot of recovery conversations.
Mm-hmm.
You're talking to a lot of families that are struggling, and you are maybe their entry point into getting some help. And
I appreciate, in all seriousness, that not just mentioning of, but also you've helped keep me honest in taking care of myself as much as I possibly can. You mention it to me almost in every conversation because you care and you see and all that. And thank you. There's part of Underground too, and I've shared this. In As you know, the disease of addiction is still winning. There's a lot of loss. There's a lot of triumph, and we celebrate the wins together as a community there on Wednesday nights. It's how we open the service, celebrations, and we celebrate the wins. But we also feel the losses and walk through the darkness together when a family member loses a loved one, a mom loses a child, a spouse loses a partner, you name it. Even somebody that has nobody but us.
sure.
It's almost, and we're that family. We feel those losses really deeply as well. So yeah, not too sure why I got on the tangent of that show, but that is that hit me about compassion fatigue. Yeah.
3.5 hours. You apparently need a lot of balm to that fatigue
Sure.
for 3.5 hours.
We just kept going.
There is something. I mean, it's definitely something we could do much more on. But the idea of compassion fatigue is something that you have to acknowledge that it will happen.
Mm-hmm.
If you're in a supportive or a helping or a caregiving role, you will have compassion fatigue, right? You don't need to overcomplicate it. You will have a day where you do not feel particularly understanding of the plight of everyone around you.
Right.
You will have times where, if you are a normally caring, present, loving person, and even in some very specific ways, primary caregiver to a loved one, or supporting someone in their recovery, or being a helping professional, you're going to have days where you're like, man,
Mm-hmm.
I ain't got it today. I ain't got it this
Sure.
week. That kind of irritability whenever I speak on burnout, compassion fatigue, secondary trauma, or moral injury, one of the things that it's important to note is that this is stuff that is happening to people. They're probably becoming maybe negative or cynical or burnt out in these certain ways, and it's not because they are now terrible, cold people, right? It's what happens when you're tired.
Mm-hmm.
You're exhausted.
Yeah.
So you think about, well, what are you going to do to energize yourself? Well, that might be a 3.5 hour show where everybody's just kind of goofing around, and you don't have to worry about who's doing what, who's saying what, who's running what, right? Like, you can just kind of get it going and trust that the personalities in the room will carry a fun dialogue.
Yeah.
That is not particularly different than what most people need socially anyways. You're putting the parentheses around it of into microphones and releasing it.
Sure.
But if you told me, gosh, once a week there's 4 or 5 of us that get together and we end up shooting the shit for 4 or 5 hours, and
Right.
we don't even recognize how long we've been at it, and then it's just like such a good relief. Yeah, I mean, that wouldn't be a weird thing to say socially.
Right.
I'd say just don't do it while you're drinking.
Yeah. There
And
you
you'd be
go,
fine.
right. Yeah, you do it watching a ball game or hockey game, or
Yeah.
I get that. And I will say that the outlet has been, it does feel, I feel lighter leaving it. So it's nice to, because I really enjoy talking. I consume talking content, if that's what this podcasting is. I enjoy doing it. It and in all seriousness, the guest that we had that went 3.5 hours is someone I really look up to in this industry of media and podcasting and articulating, and him and I were laughing like it felt like 2 hours, and we're like, "Are you kind of self-deprecating? 3.5 hours? Holy shit! Pack a lunch."
Yeah.
But I mean, I think it was. I mean, it may have been last week, because then we turned around and did a PA, and then you and I went for an hour and a half, and I was tired at the end of the night. But ask me if there's a snow day and you drop me off at Cahokia Ice Rink with my stick and my puck, that I won't stay on the ice until Marilyn's throwing me the fuck off.
Sure.
I'll be tired at the end of the 9 hours until she starts flicking cigarette butts at me to get off the ice, or tell me that the Zam's going to run me over.
Yeah,
shout out to Wes.
She's going to do both of them.
But I'll stay on the ice skating.
I am very fortunate. I mean, one of the reasons why I like talking to therapists and helpers is because I believe so much in the opportunity of sitting with people, but also I can say with confidence, I've gone home at the end of the day for a couple of decades now with energy. It's I mean, it's a hard job, right?
Sure.
I mean, it's a hard job. It's a lot of space to hold, but I find myself at the end, when the last person that I'm going to see that day leaves or the appointment is over, I am not like, I just don't drop my shoulders into my chair and need a few minutes to recover. Like I have an energy from that. I feel really energized by what I get to do. And I don't think that there's anything wrong with somebody who doesn't, right? If the person who does drop their shoulders and just kind of like, need to kind of totally decompress, that is very important. But there's a real fortune that I have experienced in sitting with people and then at the end of the day being like, okay, that was good. I can go home with some energy, and I know how rare that is. So I have like a deep respect for the fact that I get to do that. That's how that plays out. But a lot of times, we use the language of self-care, which we've talked about on here and is kind of ubiquitous, kind of everywhere right now. But the problem is, like, when people hear that and they eye roll it, there's a couple of issues. One is we've heard a lot of people say, take care of yourself, in bad faith, right? So we know that there's a lot of spaces, like, I don't know, maybe corporate spaces or something like that it's basically like, go home and refresh yourself so we can grind you to dust again tomorrow.
Sure.
And so that doesn't feel good, right? That's going to feel like lip service, which it probably is. But the concept of self-care is this discussion of, well, what do you do to care for what it is like to be you, right? Like, what are you doing so that your relationship with yourself is deepening, is available, is not abandoned, right? That is a much more methodical, non-linear process than just a bubble bath.
Yeah.
Right. And the issue is, if somebody says, well, I need a bubble bath at the end of the day, great, go take a bubble bath, right? Like, it's not that. It's not saying that the simple tasks are unimportant. They are deeply important. But the once we watered down the idea of having a relationship with self as part of how you continue to contribute throughout your days, once we watered that down as kind of, go do that so you can work more later, it lost a lot of the depth that really getting to know yourself carries.
Yeah, and it's funny how you caught the nonverbal in where self-care is so important, and it's life and death for people in recovery, people in any type of crisis situation, or and all the things I'm forgetting, not naming. I get I don't know if it's the Instagram thing or what. There's a little bit of a cringe because self-care, I think, has been turned into, for some folks, selfishness, maybe, in not the good way. If self-care means being, I got to put up a boundary and not say yes to everything, otherwise, because I'm going to fall apart and I need to take that bath, then God bless. But I've heard some folks get it kind of twisted, and it's a self-care is almost can be hurtful to another person if they use it wrong. And I see it when you were saying like the bubble bath, and I picture the duck lips in the Instagram story.
Sure. Well, there's always going to be some version of an almost privileged aspect that, you know, when we talk about self-care and then we associate it with a resource, right? We associate it with some freedom, right? As opposed to associating it with what is your relationship with what it's like to be you. And are you being asked to do a lot of things, let's say day to day, where you have to kind of self-abandon, which might be moral injury, which we can talk about another time. But
the person on the yacht, taking a picture of the scene and with the cigar, or, you know, the bikini laying out and working on the tan, saying this is a self-care day. That's where it gets a little cringe.
Well, sure. I think it's, you know, it once something has a universality to it, it's going to get a little bit watered down.
Sure.
And then you have to start figuring out, well, what does that mean to you, right? You got to go macro to micro, right?
Yeah.
Where if the only time you've ever heard somebody say self-care, it was a boss who wouldn't replace you with the next number no matter what.
Especially if it's a penny cheaper.
Yeah, you know, then sure, you're going to have a basically negative relationship with it. I think of, like, there's one of my favorite books is a book called Care of the Soul by Thomas More. And Moore is a Jungian therapist in Chicago. And he uses that title because that is essentially the translation of the term psychotherapy.
Okay.
That psyche means soul, and therapy means care. And so that the translation of what I do day to day as a psychotherapist would be care of the soul.
What does psychopath mean? Sorry,
different.
Got it.
But, you know, so there's what he speaks to is not like a religious conceptualization of the soul, but what he's speaking to is that this function of providing like real depth-oriented, curious, meaningful care to what it's like to be you. And we think about, you know, you're mentioning, like, you know, setting boundaries. Well, sometimes, I mean, there's a lot of people out there that consider the term selfish to be a curse word. You know, like, there's a lot of, I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've had somebody say to me, gosh, I just don't really want to be selfish. So then we hit them with something that's kind of placating, like, well, it's okay. You have to be selfish sometimes, which is not untrue. But in the moment when somebody is expressing a fear of selfishness, right? They're expressing the idea that there is a consequence to selfishness that they are really overwhelmed by the possibility of. We can't just say, well, you got to be a little selfish sometimes. We have to go further. We have to be more willing to discuss this fear and concern about selfishness. I think part of the reason why self-care becomes watered down so quickly is because the people that are going to hear it and really need to hear it are terrified of what it would mean to be selfish. And the people who probably don't need to hear it, who aren't having a problem, being, you know, they're going to be like, yeah, no problem, you know. But there's, you know, I mean, there's plenty of times where I hear somebody who the thought of setting a boundary or saying no to something is just, it's terrifying. So then the guidance that we give people, which might be, well, you have to say no, right? You got to learn how to say no. You got to do better. I remember a mentor of mine one time told me that I needed to practice letting someone down once a day.
Ha!
As like,
You can't do that,
yeah,
Chaz.
which is like great guidance, but it's like, well, I need a little more meat on the bone with this
You're gonna
guidance.
struggle with that,
I'm
brother.
I'm already operating under the thought that I'm letting people down. I couldn't imagine if we started doing it on purpose.
Just your mere existence is letting
Yeah,
people
I'm
down.
already terrified,
Oh boy.
and so I think, you know, it is the thought of what I think is really amazing about people, and I would speak specifically to the people I've had the honor of sitting with as a therapist over the years. I hear so many people in the room that are scared that a certain amount of taking care of themselves is so against the rules. You know, there's an inner structure of like, gosh, I don't want to be selfish. I don't want people to see me as selfish. And again, the line is probably not that razor thin, right? It's always going to be 51-49 for all of us, you know, but it just speaks to people who come to therapy or start working on themselves, and it is such a big leap for them to be like, I am going to talk about myself and my experience for an hour, because they're terrified. It's scary to think like, what if I become selfish, right? What if I start behaving in a way? What if I start saying no to things that I really don't want to do? And the byproduct of that is my total rejection and abandonment, you know? And so we end up having to go way, way deeper than just, you know, hey, boundaries, learn how to say no. It's like, no, we're in the labyrinth, you know, like
Yeah.
that saying no is the Minotaur. He's coming.
I think in my therapy sessions, I think I do my best to extrapolate information from my therapist to talk about her, because I feel bad talking about myself. I feel it's selfish to talk about myself for that long. So
Sure.
I do whatever I can to avoid to flip the script, do things like that.
Sure.
And you know, we have a great relationship, but she's often said that you know, the doorknob conversation has been, I do that pretty well.
Yeah, I believe it.
Yeah.
You are somebody that even if people said you like to make things about you, you are actually more somebody that likes to you make things about you by what you can do for or with someone. And so you pivot really quickly to seeing what somebody else needs and whether or not you can provide it, and then you're going to get a big bump from that.
Yeah. Like dopamine bump?
Yeah,
Okay,
like you're
yeah,
gonna,
yeah.
not like, yeah,
I think
yeah, you're not gonna relapse.
right,
I
sure,
mean,
sure.
like, I mean,
funny
like
that
the thought of, you know,
I knew what you meant figuratively.
yeah, I think it's just like that's a pivot for you, is that, you know, you have an easier time talking about yourself once you can bring you into what you're going to be able to do for somebody or connect somebody with. And so whenever somebody says no strings attached, talk about yourself, you go like, you know, well, did you survive the storm the other night?
You were a foster parent too?
Yeah, you know, and that's just the nature. I mean, at its core, it's probably the nature of codependency, but
Which was one of our options for
yeah,
tonight.
which is always a discussion, or always in the room. But
I definitely want to punt that though, not to be a bad like deep teaser here on the codependency, because I really want to unpack that in a even like start to finish show, and we've talking about self-care and compassion fatigue. You gave me options. I was going to choose inner critic tonight, because we've kind of tiptoed there. I mean, right? We're adjacent to that already. But as a husband of a wife who has done a lot of work on her own codependency, I didn't know what codependency was until I really met her. My brain my like knowledge set didn't know what it was. It was there, right? But I didn't know what it was, and then the light bulbs went off when she kind of explained it and how dangerous that shit can be.
Sure.
Especially in terms of relationships. So,
well, we're rolling. We can roll with the
Your call.
compassion fatigue and what we're talking about. I mean, it all blends together because there's this was something that I was very fortunate to learn when I first started in community mental health. One of the populations that I worked with quite a bit were people that were diagnosed with borderline personality. And
Oof.
early in my career, I'm not saying that this has gotten a lot better, but it's gotten a little better. Early in my career, this was a population of people that the field really treated poorly in terms of like what we would consider our countertransference, right? Our reaction to them was really negative. And
Like mine, and when I just go, ooh.
yeah, like
Yeah,
it
we're like
was,
that.
you know,
Yeah,
like
great.
used to, if you were diagnosed, if somebody's going to diagnose you with borderline personality, then they would say, don't Google it, because you know, they knew that you were going to find something online right away that was like, oh, this is going to be terrible for, you know. And it was so, God, it's so unfair. It was brutal. It just the unfair judgmental treatment that was levied upon people that were suffering so much. But why I bring it up is there's a real difficulty within that uh, structure, that borderline personality structure, in having a sense of self, right? Like there's just not a lot of attachment to the experience of self. And so you think about all these things that we guide people towards. In addiction to is a great example. Self-care, taking care of yourself, being a little bit more selfish. We guide people in this direction, but our order of operations is bad because we don't necessarily know, well, have you ever really had an established sense of self, right? Do you really know what it's like to be you minute to minute? Or have you been numb from it, dissociated from it, cut off from it, codependent through the lens of only worried about the experience of other people in the moment, right? Like a lot of times, like especially in therapy, I run into people who are going to say like, I don't know what I want. I don't know what I want to do, right? Like, and then you think about the energy. I mean, we do the same thing with like movement and exercise, right? We're just like, you need to exercise. But then we don't. I mean, we've said this on here before, right? Then
Eat less, move more.
we don't get too far into the discussion of like, well, has your body ever moved in a way you like, right? Have you ever enjoyed movement at all? Like, you know, and we just kind of leave these opportunities on the table to deepen the discussion of, well, no, I don't need you to talk about taking care of yourself yet. I want to talk to you about like, what is that self experience like? What is it like to be you? What is that? You know, when you have an experience that's just yours, how would you know, right? Or because we all get a big sense of self from the eyes of other people, right? Like the
Sure.
feedback that we're getting from people is necessary because that's just the nature of how much we need one another, right? That's our social experience that we really, really need. But then you also have this space of telling somebody who maybe gets a significant amount of their identity from the work that they do, a significant amount of identity from taking care of their kids and being a parent, a significant amount of their identity, maybe not from their work, but from having money, right? Like, oh, I'm successful in these following ways and that's who I am. And then we say, you know, Pondoff, you need to take better care of yourself.
Right.
But we don't ask like, well, what do you like, right? Like you're fortunate enough in this example tonight to say, well, I seem to kind of like sitting around with some people and talking trash for a while
yeah.
and kind of bullshitting and seeing what comes up. And that's just fun to me. And that kind of energizes me and that feels good. So you have a frame of reference
Yeah.
to like some healthy things that feel good. A lot of us don't have that, right? We've never had a frame of reference to what we really enjoy. I mean, even think about being a kid, right? We just talked about how hard it is to be a teenager. I mean, think about being a 12-year-old kid if you don't like the same music as everybody else likes, right?
Right.
Like so you're learning and learning and learning that like your opinion is kind of secondary maybe to things that people are giving you as this opinion. And once you get asked, wait, what do you authentically like? Do you like that? Or do you like that liking that allows other people to like you? Right? You're going to do that second one no matter what. We all will.
Sure.
But when we're pressed on we need to recharge our own battery. We need to reconnect to our own authentic experience. There are so many of us maybe all of us at some point, definitely myself at certain points in my life, who are going to be like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like if you tell me I need to take a break from work, I'll be like, what about more work?
Yeah.
You tell me I need some time to myself. I'm like, I would love some time to myself. Would you like to come?
Right.
Would you like to be there during my solitude? For me, I was very fortunate to discover, Buddhism really early in my adult life. So even as I was maybe like really clunky, stumbling through this kind of what is my own inner experience and what do I like and what do I want, I at least had a reflective mechanism in place. And it clearly didn't do all the work. We're never done. But
trying to think of the things I like. We talked about all the podcasts that we're doing. I think it's great. I love the network, the team, all of that. But one of my probably, and I've said this, and I know it sounds cliche. I say this with the most sense of gratitude and luckiness and jackpot lottery of all time. But like at the end of the night, and the end of the night can be 2 hours upstairs watching TV with Ash, and it's always kind of fiddle fucking on my phone, and Charlie's in his room playing video game like that. If anything, recharge. I think the reason I can sustain the pace I'm sustaining is because right now I have that almost every night, and it is truly a well for me. And that's reflective. If somebody would have told me proactively, like, laying in bed watching TV, like I hear Tom saying, lazy piece of shit, get the fuck up and do something. And like that was always wired. Like you can't, that whether I may not like to run or work in the yard, but because he loved it, and our yard work was his fucking escape every Saturday. I didn't like it because I was a lazy piece of. He never did anything wrong, but he motivated me.
Perfect.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, he motivated me by saying, "Don't be a pussy and get up and don't be a lazy pussy and go mow the grass." And I love it. I'm gonna sweat. He'd say, "I love to sweat. You don't. You like to lay in bed all day."
No.
So it is funny that's not my
beloved figure.
I love him so much. I miss him every day. But it is kind of ironic that my it is my battery charger is that hour, 2 hours at night, 30 minutes if that's all we got.
That is also
try to grope a little bit, but she always shuts it down. Her and the dogs.
I'm so sorry, Ashley.
Well,
I let that story go on too long, everyone, and I take responsibility for it.
There was a bed involved, right?
It's me. I could have been ahead of that. So
low hanging.
Accept my apologies. I think that there's also this need for a bit of a permission structure where even when we task people with taking care of themselves or taking a break or taking better care of themselves if they're getting burnt out or exhausted, a lot of people, and this is kind of our, dare I say, our kind of like radical optimization culture that we're in, a lot of people still think they have to do a particularly cool version of taking care of themselves. That if the thing is, I need to get off work an hour earlier so I have an extra hour to just kind of be in bed watching TV with my wife or with my partner, if somebody says that doesn't register as like meaningful enough to be self-care, right? Like even self-care is it ends up having it gets impacted by our culture.
Yeah, that's where I was going with the time.
Like it gets really, it's like, oh, I need to take care of myself. What is the best way to do that? How can I be the best at taking care of myself? Like
that's it for me, man.
Yeah, giving yourself permission for mindless television and time with loved ones to be how you recharge should not be a complicated thing, but it is.
Sure,
it is.
Yeah,
it is
that's
permission structure.
You're putting the words. You're so wise. Like that's why it's hard for me to say. And I look back now, and that's what recharges my batteries, and why I can have too many irons in a fire if I had a nickel for for every time I heard that.
Make sure you don't listen to those people.
You got it.
Yeah.
That's reverse psychology. I picked up
You
on
see
that.
Michael Scott.
Yeah, but it is so. I'm still laughing at we had dinner last night. About the guy from The Office. Was it The Office or was it?
I'm sure it was The Office.
He said the guy showed up at the office and he was the third grader that he had fucked with because his mom told him he was stupid.
He used to bully him. Yeah, the Jim used to bully, and then the guy looks at Jim and says, "Where's your jetpack, Zuckerberg?"
I keep laughing about.
It's like great, yeah. Great show.
Yeah, I get it since last night. I've been laughing about that. But yeah, it has been hard for me to accept that, and now I get in. Okay, well, I'm just gonna fear the day that's over because nothing's forever, and really can be my own inner critic and mind fuck myself there. But that is my battery recharger.
It wouldn't be the worst idea to talk to your therapist about that. Like when I do the thing that recharges me, I'm immediately compounding it with the fear that this too will go away. Yeah. I mean, like
they took Tom from me.
Impermanence. Well, we're all impermanent.
Sure.
Everything is impermanent.
They took Bristol.
Yeah. Yeah. And they were always gonna. Whoever they are. Everything is impermanent. I really need to do a better job researching where exactly I take this from, because I know a couple of places I've heard it, but I don't know the source of that. We've said before, you ask somebody, what would you do if you had a year to live, and people go bucket list. And if you ask somebody, what would you do if you had 2 days or a week to live, people say a lot of things they could do every day. So like people say, oh, I've never been to, Paris. I've never, seen the Grand Canyon, right? Like it becomes these big bucket list things, which makes sense, of course. But then if you say you got 48 hours to live, it becomes a lot of like, I need my partner to know how much I love her. I need my friends. I want my friends to stop by and so I can tell them how important they are to me.
Not me. I don't walk the dog.
Like it suddenly becomes, it becomes this weird wake up call of, well, wait, why are you not doing that every day anyways? If you only had 48 hours to live and that's what you were going to do, go do that real quick, and that is not a criticism, because one of the difficulties is you ask a question like that and you say that, and rather than people thinking, oh, I guess I could go do that, people hear like, I know I'm screwing up.
Right.
I know I'm messing up. I know I'm messing up. I know I should do that. Or, oh, well, it's like, no, we're all distracted from that. This is not kind of the loftiness of like, oh, don't worry, I do that. I go right home and say that.
When I'm on my deathbed, Chaz, I'm going to say, I wish I could have responded to a couple more emails.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a couple in the inbox that I
not
could
hang
get to.
with Charlie, although the big man told you kind of fuck right off last night.
Yeah, I mean, when he's done, he's
feeling
done.
pretty good.
Yeah,
he was feeling pretty good about himself.
Yeah, I mean, it's something. Even Holly jokes about how she's going to be responsible for like canceling appointments while I'm in hospice. that you're just, you can't seem to get me out of the room. Like I want to work with people and sit with people and be this as safe of a space as I can. It's going to
need to go that way.
Yeah, and
after the conversation we had last night,
and that I think is probably. It's true. I laugh at that joke, but I also look at it through the lens of, this is that is true. And so even my view of taking care of myself is sometimes very skewed by that, right? Because I am not being.
Yeah, you don't have a whole lot of Chaz time in your schedule that I know about.
No, but I'm
Friday.
Also not very. I'm not frequently pulled off the course of what I really value. True. And if you believe like Stephen Hayes, the guy that created acceptance and commitment therapy, who I give credit to because I know he's somebody that says that he
no relation to my case.
No, that he didn't invent any of this, right? Like he put it together as one big package of things, but he didn't invent any of it. But it's back to that. Like one thing that I'm very fortunate with is I don't have a lot of things in my life that pull me off course from what I really value. And we all have been pulled off course countless times. So like right now, sitting here today, I don't. Some of that is I am obsessed with what I do as a therapist. Some of that is I have very, very fortunate to have the relationships I have in my life. And some of that is something like self-employment, where
True.
the buck stops with me in terms of if there's a mistake made. I can't look at the boss and be like, oh, I'm exhausted.
You
because
do what you love to do.
Yeah.
And another one of Tom's pearls of wisdom is that the key to happiness in life is to love what you do. And I think it was his way of justifying his burning the candle at both ends,
Sure.
business wise. But I know he did love what he did. He loved being in business, but you do love what you do.
Oh,
and that's
yeah.
a real I think it's a real gift, and it's also courageous because here, like you said, being a self-employed, I mean, there's risk associated
Sure.
with that. And I think a lot of times the fear gets in a lot of people I even just know the way to actually pursue doing what they love to do. And you hear all the whys they can. A lot of them are legitimate.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of them I think are I hear a lot of the whys very similar to why people can't stop drinking, or why they can't, not that why they can't stop drinking. They may know they have to, but I hear a lot of it on why they can't check into treatment today.
Sure.
Because, and we start stacking the bricks on the wall pretty high, and the first few rows of bricks are really, they're foundational bricks. We can overcome them, but then you, all of a sudden your aunt Nancy's has a chickapoo or a bird you got to feed that you
Sure.
don't really know if it's still alive or
Didn't
not.
like that bird yesterday.
Right. All of a sudden that bird's real important.
Yeah, it's all terrifying. I think treatment is especially inpatient treatment is a great example because it is terrifying, right? Yeah. No matter how good something might be for me, if you told me to stop doing what I'm doing for the next 30 days, no questions asked, and I got no real wiggle room, I am going to. If you told me that was what I needed to do tomorrow morning, I wouldn't need 5 minutes to tell you 100 reasons why
Sure.
I couldn't. Like, I mean, I just think that it's just terrifying. And especially when it's like anything else, when you've discovered something that was helpful for you, you take it personal when other people don't think that it's helpful. And it's just like, yeah, we have to respect that. That's just how we operate as humans. There's no amount of you telling me what has helped you that is going to 100% mean that I'm going to adopt that same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't mean don't tell anybody, right? Like anything from here's a great book, here's a therapist or doctor that I went to see, to like, here's a great restaurant, right? Like we're all out here sharing what we're doing that we like. That I think is really important. But it is terrifying to do things that are good for us. Right. In some instances, it can be more terrifying to do something that is good for yourself than it would ever be to do something good for somebody else.
Yeah.
Truly. It's something where, you were you gave language to it the other day about how when you talk to all of these people that are absolutely in the dogfight of trying to help a loved one get help or get support, that still taking the time to be like, who are you talking to?
Yeah.
Like who's helping you? Now, the good news is if you're doing that in the context of like all the moms we talked to a couple of weeks ago or the underground, right? If the person looks around and says, here,
sure,
you're like, okay, cool. I'm good. Way better than zero.
Right. Yeah. Let me connect a couple more dots.
But
for you.
I think it's like, as a therapist, if I hear from a relative of somebody saying like, I really think you could help my relative, because I want to make sure that they have the exact support that they need. Given the opportunity, I also want to be like, what are you doing so you have the exact support that you need? Because it is easy for all of us to self-neglect. Like self-neglect and self-abandonment is just right. It's just kind of right there. And then we kind of get this picture in our head. Same thing about going to treatment. We get this picture in our head of, I will know the exact minute that I can take care of myself.
Right.
When all of these things are done.
All these boxes are checked.
And that is very comforting. It is very human. right? Because you can kind of picture that, right? If somebody had to
Even
go,
if it's bullshit.
yeah, of course, because
I'm a master at this. It's funny you say I'm a master at this.
yeah, there is a fear like to betting on yourself, even if the betting on yourself is, God, I deserve to feel better. That is scary, and so we take this language of the first time you and I sat down in here, we talked about it, right? That the moment of the Buddha's enlightenment, he's tasked with the question, "Who the hell are you to feel better?"
Right.
And so once we get into this, like this kind of yeah, but, or only if, or I'll do that when, that's not total self-deception, right? It's probably correct, and it's not going to get different. So if you got to do something, you got to do something. If you got to get some help, you got to get some help.
Sure.
I think about, because my example through the course of my week to week is when people are being particularly critical of themselves about not doing more. That, well, I need to start exercising. I need to do this. I need to do this. Or they just say, like, the 3 things I thought I was going to do, I haven't done since the last time we talked, so I'm not really doing anything. I at least want to say again, you are here.
Yeah.
Right? Like you're not doing nothing. You're probably doing the one that is the most grind of trying to help yourself. You're sitting for an hour and kind of seeing what unfolds and processing these things, which of course I believe deeply in as having a big payoff, right? Like it has a lot of potential.
And without the wisdom, the way you just put it, the light bulb went off. I've told many people that want to make a change or that are in this space in the 30-day and then leave, and I say, and I'm thinking of some friends I've told this to, go see a therapist, and for some of them, call your primary care physician and make an appointment. They make a call. Here's a number, call this referral therapist. They call. That's a check that box. Okay. You made and then you went, and then like, well, that one, I didn't like that person. We didn't fit well. Okay. Well, celebrate the win. You went. Like, for a lot of people, that's the scary part, as you said. And then call the next person until you find one. And all those are all W's, man.
Yeah, for sure. They
build up, and you start really, to your point, you're here.
All of us will scroll through Netflix for 45 minutes.
Yeah. Like the previews, man. It's like Warner theaters now.
Yeah. And all in the name of, like, at some point I'm going to pick a show. And that's like, you get all of these choices, right? You get all of these options, you get all these things in front of you, and they're getting oversimplified by the people around you, right? Like, well, call a doctor, right? Call a therapist.
I like that analogy. It's perfect.
And it's like, yeah, I mean, there is pretty much everything that we do in life that is a major transitional investment. Right? There's 2 things. One is it's always going to come with loss, right? Change is loss. We've talked about that before. And 2, everything that we've done probably includes a significant amount of searching. There are very few things that any of us have done that we would kind of put a pin in as a benchmark moment in our life, where we would say, I only had to do one thing. I did that one thing, and everything's been great ever since that one thing. Now, we might tell the story that way, right? Like, you might say 12 years and 10 days ago, I made a decision.
Right.
And it's been glory to God.
12 years and 31 days ago. Who's counting?
That process.
Glory to God.
Yeah.
He's risen.
And so I think of that, where it's like, sure, we can tell the shorthand of a story, but the real story is the million conversations, weird little confrontations. This was going to be the bottom, phone calls that weren't returned. All of those things play out as we kind of like drop them as soon as we have something. And then we go tell people that's what you need to do is you need to call somebody, you need to get this help, you need to do this thing. And we skip the part of the story that is every transition, right? Every job is a lot of interviews. Every every pursuit of the next phase of things, or a raise or a promotion or a career change or education or volunteering or anything, is a lot of phone calls, a lot of applications, a lot of stops and starts. Therapy, a lot of stops and starts, right? You might see me for 6 months and then be like, yeah, I'll call you when I need you, and then see me again a year later. I love that, because that's life.
Sure.
That's life. That is what it's like to be human, but it's also what it's like to be human in a space with a lot of like weird choices in front of you, where it's like, well, okay, Google doctor
Right.
in my town, right? Like all of a sudden it's like, well, I don't know which one's the best one. So then you're 7 pages deep
Google
looking
reviews.
for who is going to be a go. That's where we're kind of faced with these transitional moments. Any time we start anything that we would eventually have called a commitment in our life, we forget all the times we thought we were gonna and didn't.
Mm-hmm.
We just do it. It's just like we cleave that part of the story off, right? Like I get a job at 16 years old at an ice rink, and that's job I had for a really long time, and that's where I met you, and that's where I met a lot of friends, and it's an important part of my narrative. But as a 16-year-old kid, I probably had 40 applications in. Nobody was calling me, and I'm not, I'm not out there pounding the pavement like, in desperate situation. It's just I'm applying everywhere because I need to get a job. That was just it. So I'm not thinking anymore since then about the however many applications that I put in before working at the rink.
Yeah.
Anytime we are
The
tasked,
process.
we are tasked with a transition, with a change, an improvement, anything like that, we really have a tendency to forget that transition comes with some weird change and some weird loss, but it also comes with a lot of stops and starts.
That is making me do a inventory on, the times. I mean, even just the 2 years between what was my darkest moment and rock bottom of Tom dying to when I checked 22 months later, checking into rehab, all those conversations I had with my physician, and all the seeds that were planted, and the process to getting there was, I mean, now it's it was a very heavy process. So yeah, 12 years and 31 days of the grace of God.
Yeah. Skin of your teeth in some of them, I just really have a lot of respect. I had a moment today. I was in between sessions today, and I've been putting together the thing for the shrine, and I had to write a couple of trainings recently, and that can be something that I get a little bit too focused on, in that I'm like, okay, I want to reread all of these books so that I make sure I know what information I'm pulling from, and I want to do that kind of research, and then I want to kind of organize it. Then I will put it in my head, well, I'm going to write this on Saturday. I'll get all that situated, and I will kind of like inundate myself with it. I'll get to the point where I'm pretty saturated, and I'm like, oh man, I just want to get this done. And that's a big tell for me, right? Because I get to do a lot of things that I care about. I'm very fortunate. I get to do these things I enjoy. And so when I'm doing something I enjoy and I'm going, I really want to get this done so that this is ready, right? That's a big red flag for me. That's when I know, like, well, hold on, right? Like, where are you at? Right. Like and so fortunately I didn't really get there. I got these trainings written, all the stuff I've reread for the shrine and everything has just been great. But I had a thought today where I noticed this kind of pull where I was like, gosh, I really need like some Winnie the Pooh in my life. I really, I suddenly had this draw of like, I really need to reread the Tao of Pooh. I need Mr. Rogers right now.
That's your guy.
Yeah. And I just kind of, in my mind, it came up relatively organically, right? Like it came up as like, just like a thought. But then I realized like, no, I really do. Like that actually was not just a random thought. That was like, okay, I definitely need some really nice, caring, loving stuff.
Yeah.
Like I need that. I was immediately comforted by the thought
Hmm.
of a little picture of Winnie the Pooh.
You hear that storm?
Yeah. Yeah.
Sounds good, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Gonna put me to sleep. I
Yeah.
can take these headphones home.
Well, if the storm's bad enough, we're gonna sleep here anyways. So
It'll be fine.
yeah.
I got in trouble for that earlier.
But yeah, I mean, those kinds of things, like that's where I'm lucky to have this experience where I can have a flash of something like that and go, oh, that's kind of home base. I need that right now.
Uh-huh.
So when we talk about all this stuff like self-care, and we say like, isn't this watered down? Isn't this like selfish? Isn't some people don't really get it? Some people are just on a yacht smoking a cigar and living the life. It's like, yeah, because we haven't taken the time to really help people learn what is it that you need?
Yeah.
What is it that when you are able to just kind of settle into the thought of it, you feel more safe as yourself. You feel more connected to your inner life. And if people have never really explored that, we need to normalize like, okay, that just means you don't know.
I will.
And we'll
I
find
should
it.
try out a picnic table in Shell Knob.
Yeah, like let's find it. I can't tell you how thankful I am to just be sitting there today and be like, I want to read something about Winnie the Pooh. Right? Like, cause it's like,
That's a new one. I know Mr. Rogers is your OG.
I love that Winnie the Pooh. I like that Winnie the Pooh, and I like that Peanuts. I like that Snoopy.
Sarah Russo loves that Peanuts.
I like that Snoopy, that Charlie Brown. He's really been through
like
it.
the comics.
Yeah, and I like that Pigpen. That's my guy, Pigpen.
Oh.
He's in there with Snoopy and Woodstock and all them. But like that's one of those moments. Like
More of a Garfield guy, wasn't he?
I love that Garfield.
Was he a curmudgeon or?
Yeah, I love that Garfield too. Like I had a therapist that I was supervising at one point who told me that she always kept Calvin and Hobbes books in her drawer at work because that's her break.
Ah.
Like she just pull out a little Calvin and Hobbes and read it in between.
I'm pretending I know Calvin and Hobbes.
It's just a comic strip.
Got it.
Yeah, a comic strip.
I like Dilbert.
Yeah, it's just, yeah, I mean, like that kind of stuff, like you only know that works for you if you've taken the time to build some relationship with yourself. And we live in a world right now that does not necessarily validate what it's like to deepen a relationship with yourself, especially if you deepening a relationship with yourself means that you're going to want to spend 30 minutes reading Garfield, right? Well, that's not, who's that helping? What productivity is there? Right. So it's important, I think, to be able to have just these conversations about self-care rather than you need to take better care of yourself. It's to back it off a step and be like, have you ever felt the freedom necessary to learn what it's like to be you, so you know what you like, so you know what you need, so you know how to break down a day in a way where you can come home and just watch TV and know that that's going to work.
Yeah. Man. It makes me I should be sleeping by the time we get home, but it makes me want to, I mean, that it is just what the doctor orders sometimes. It's relaxing and vegging out. Throw on a little Dateline or Forensic Files. Nothing like a good murder.
People love that. Yeah.
Nothing like a good serial killer that can really let me wind down a little bit.
Well, yeah, I just think
Winnie the Pooh and Mr. Rogers. I'm women behind bars.
I'm pretty confident that mine is the less likely, anyways. So don't worry. I'm not. I don't think I'm doing it the right way. But
you're not. Winnie the Pooh and Mr. Rogers aren't on every channel prime time.
No, yeah. There's clearly a misstep there. But if anybody's looking for a good book, that Tao Pooh by Benjamin Hoff, that's a good one.
They're
that's
making notes.
And The Day of Piglet, that's the other one. Yeah, I just think, that is one of those things that I would, if given the opportunity, would say into a microphone every day. Like, people deserve the opportunity to have a very simple, safe, connected relationship with themselves. And we don't necessarily get shown how to do that or asked about that enough. So when we build out the discussion of something like taking care of yourself, we just need to kind of slow down a little bit and say, well, before we talk about self-care, I just want to talk about, do you have the means to explore the things you might like or that you might enjoy? And if you don't, let's just start there. You don't have to know, let's build enough safety and curiosity for trial and error. And, as we kind of normalize that, as we have more conversations, even conversations on PA where people are essentially talking about when they started living, a lot of times, like when they started figuring out what they like and what they could do and what worked for them, normalizing that it's okay when we don't know, even if what we used to know isn't working anymore.
Yeah.
Building in that kind of curiosity so that people can just kind of slow down and say, damn, I wonder what it's like to be me. And, hopefully somebody needed to hear that.
Amen.